Before you listen, if you enjoy the stories and want to hear more, then please consider subscribing. Most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please take this time to subscribe. Turn on notifications so you'll never miss a story and be the first to hear. You'll also be supporting me. Thank you. I was in such a financial bind that I ignored all the blatant warning signs and let a total stranger named Josie move into my apartment, which ended up unleashing a terrifying living nightmare. It all started about 6 months ago. I was really struggling to afford my downtown studio apartment on just my entry-level salary. The rent kept going up while my pay remained stagnant. I started desperately searching for a roommate to share costs with. I posted an ad on Craigslist emphasizing how spacious and sunny the apartment was, how conveniently located near fun bars and cafes. I was optimistic someone normal would reply quickly. Boy, was I wrong. The only response I got was from a woman named Josie who said she had just moved to the city for a new job and needed a room fast. No other prospects in sight, I eagerly gave Josie my address to come check out the apartment that same evening. Josie arrived right on time. She was very petite with mousy brown hair, probably late 20s, soft-spoken and shy. As we toured the apartment, she just nodded along quietly as I described the neighborhood and amenities. Josie said it was perfect and she could move in next week. In my desperation for extra rent money, I overlooked the fact that Josie seemed oddly aloof and tense for someone about to enter a roommate arrangement. I chalked it up to her just being introverted and excited about her new job. Big mistake on my part. The following Tuesday, Josie arrived with a single suitcase and backpack, no bed frame, mattress, desk, or any normal furniture. All she had was a flimsy air mattress to sleep on. I pointed this out, but she just murmured something about her stuff being delayed in the move. Huge red flag number 2 that I rationalized away. That first night, as I was heading to bed around midnight, I heard faint murmuring coming from the thin wall separating my room from Josie's. I pressed my ear against the wall to try and make out what the soft droning voice was saying, but I could only catch a word here and there. It was like Josie was having a rambling, one-sided conversation with herself, occasionally letting out an odd, high-pitched laugh. The continuous creepy muttering went on for what felt like hours, making it impossible for me to fall asleep. I kept glancing nervously at my locked door, hoping Josie wouldn't try to enter my room in the middle of the night. The whole scene was incredibly unsettling and sent chills down my spine. I convinced myself it was probably just new apartment nerves or loneliness on Josie's first night in a new, unfamiliar place. Surely this weird behavior would stop after she settled in, I reasoned, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Every night for the rest of that week, I was jolted awake around 2 a.m. by the sudden loud echoing of forceful, repetitive hammering coming from Josie's room. The banging was so deafening it sounded like she was building new walls or boarding up her existing ones. It would go on for 60 to 90 minutes at a time, no matter how much I pounded on her door trying to get her to stop. The hammering was so erratic, no pacing or pattern to it, just constant chaotic banging in all directions at all hours of the night. When I'd go knock on her door yelling for the noise to stop, either she would completely ignore it or the banging would abruptly halt, leaving my heart racing in the newly restored silence. Yet by morning, Josie acted oblivious, denying hearing any banging whenever I confronted her about it. By the third straight night of being jolted awake by the piercing hammer strikes and echoes, followed by the shrieking scrape of heavy furniture being shoved back and forth across the hardwood floors for hours, I knew something was very unstable and wrong with my new roommate, Josie. I felt like I was living with a complete dangerous stranger. My suspicions were confirmed when I worked up the courage to peek inside Josie's room while she was out running errands. What I saw absolutely horrified me: creepy occult symbols painted on the walls, weird shrines built from garbage, and Polaroids of me sleeping in my room. I immediately told Josie she needed to move out in the next 48 hours or I'd be calling the police. She acted confused at first, but I think saw the fear in my eyes. Josie silently packed her few belongings and was gone that same day. Her exit was almost more unsettling than if she'd resisted. After Josie left, I had a security system with cameras installed, bought extra locks, and slept with pepper spray and a bat by my bed. I kept waiting for her to show back up. Thankfully, she was gone for good, though I did throw out some personal items of hers I found, fearing they contained sinister spirits or magic. To this day, I still find myself unable to sleep well, jumping at every odd noise in the apartment at night. I should have trusted my intuition when Josie gave me the creeps that first meeting, but the rent pressure clouded my judgment. You truly never know someone's true nature when strangers are involved. So beware, people. I'll never again ignore red flags or rationalize away bizarre behavior just because it might save me money on rent. It's an unfortunate lesson, but please be careful who you welcome into your home, literally and figuratively. Always listen to your gut instinct, watch for warning signs, and take action to protect yourself no matter how awkward it may feel in the moment. As a perpetually broke college student, finding an affordable room to rent anywhere remotely close to campus felt like winning the lottery. A diamond in the rough that would solve all my housing worries so I could focus on classes. But that seemingly amazing deal quickly turned into a living nightmare once my unstable roommate Stacy began stealthily stealing from me. When I first got accepted to the big local university downtown, my main source of stress was figuring out where I could possibly afford to live on my tiny budget. I had some savings from working retail throughout high school, but not nearly enough for most apartments near campus. After a painfully stressful summer of scrutinizing Facebook groups and Craigslist ads, I finally lucked out stumbling upon Stacy's posting. She was looking for someone to rent the second bedroom in her off-campus apartment for only $400 a month. Given the prime location, just a 5-minute walk from the university, this was unheard of affordable. I immediately called the number listed, trying to contain my excitement. Stacy's bubbly voice chirped over the phone as we arranged a tour of the apartment for the very next day. She sounded young, friendly, and eager to rent the room. Nothing rang as odd or concerning during our brief chat. When I arrived at the building complex, Stacy greeted me at the door with a huge smile, overflowing with energetic charm as she led me inside. She was petite with choppy brown hair and looked to be in her early 20s like me. Her style was a bit eccentric and messy, but she seemed sweet and harmless at first impression. As we toured the furnished apartment, Stacy could not stop raving about how fun it would be to have a roommate again. Gushing about movie nights, cooking dinners together, confiding about cute campus boys, everything you'd expect from an extroverted college girl. The apartment itself was pretty worn down with dated decor, but livable enough for my student lifestyle. Stacy's enthusiasm was admittedly contagious. I got caught up picturing building a friendship once we moved in. In my rose-colored quest to secure affordable lodging seconds from school, I overlooked some telling red flags about Stacy's overly familiar, scattered demeanor. The first couple of weeks of living together were fairly calm and uneventful. We were both preoccupied with dense class schedules and part-time jobs, but made some effort to pleasantly interact on occasion. Most days we just exchanged brief small talk about classes or shows we were currently streaming. Normal rookie roommate stuff. However, I did start noticing that Stacy almost never seemed to leave the apartment, even just to grab food or run errands. Whenever I came and went, she'd be camped on the couch surfing TV, unless she had a shift at the coffee shop she worked at. Stacy's persistent lingering around the common spaces started to make me a little uncomfortable, like she had no hobbies or social life to occupy her outside our walls. About 2 weeks into living together, I went to spritz my favorite expensive Channel perfume before class and realized the bottle was missing from my private bathroom. When I asked Stacy if she maybe borrowed it by accident, she insisted emphatically that she hadn't even entered my personal bathroom at all. I chose to take her word for it at the time, but definitely felt skeptical. Just a few days later, I was getting ready to style my hair and couldn't locate my hairdryer anywhere in my room. Once again, I questioned Stacy, and once again she swore adamantly that she had absolutely no clue where it went and would never take my things without permission. At this point, though, I seriously started growing suspicious of my seemingly so innocent new roommate's behavior. However, since I didn't have any concrete evidence proving Stacy had taken my belongings, I tried giving her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I had misplaced them while adjusting to the new space, but one fateful evening my doubts were confirmed. I arrived home past 11 p.m. after working a long closing shift at the diner near campus. The very second I stepped through the front door, I immediately noticed my previously shut bedroom door was now bizarrely wide open. Peeking inside, I saw my dresser drawers were all open with clothes yanked out and strewn wildly around the room. Someone had clearly been rifling through my private possessions while I was out. I marched back to the living room, absolutely shocked to find Stacy casually sitting on the couch watching TV, acting completely oblivious. When I freaked out demanding an explanation, she just shrugged and said she had ducked in to borrow some shampoo from my shower earlier. That nonchalant response absolutely sent chills down my spine. After that extremely unsettling invasion of privacy, I realized I could never feel safe leaving any of my valuables alone in the apartment with Stacy again. But I was unfortunately locked into a 12-month lease I could not afford to break without severe financial penalty. Desperate for some peace of mind, I immediately bought a heavy-duty padlock for my bedroom door to prevent her snooping, as well as a small security camera I could set up to remotely monitor my room anytime I went out. I also started carrying absolutely anything expensive or irreplaceable with me in a bag no matter where I went. Laptop, jewelry, sentimental items. Yet somehow, Stacy kept finding ways to sneakily get her hands on more of my stuff, despite all my heightened precautions. Sometimes just a bit of cash would mysteriously vanish from my locked bedside drawer. Other times a sweater left in the laundry room would disappear. Whenever I directly confronted her about these incidents, Stacy always had some smooth excuse ready about accidentally mixing up our identical belongings. It was positively maddening. However, the final breaking point came a month later when I realized a large amount of cash was missing from my locked wallet, which I hid in a discreet location in my bedroom that only I knew about. That brazen theft was the very last straw. The day after the semester ended, I immediately packed up all my belongings and moved them to a modest studio apartment I found several blocks farther from campus. Although the loss of that coveted 5-minute walking convenience stung, I felt an enormous sense of relief escaping the constant underlying violation and anxiety of living with a devious thief under the same roof. I had absolutely no clue my new roommate Kyle was secretly running a massive drug ring out of our shared apartment until the morning I was jolted awake by armed police officers breaking down our front door and raiding the place. They barged in with guns drawn, forcing me to the floor and slapping cuffs on both of us as they ransacked every room. I was completely blindsided and terrified, having no idea what was even happening. This nightmare all started about 2 months after I first moved to the city for my entry-level corporate job straight out of college. I was so excited to finally be out on my own in a new vibrant metropolis, but the ultra-competitive rental market meant apartments were insanely expensive, even splitting costs with roommates. So when I came across Kyle's Craigslist ad offering an unusually cheap room in his 2-bedroom downtown condo, I immediately jumped at the opportunity. The low rent he offered would stretch my modest salary much further, so I arranged to meet Kyle and check the place out right away before someone else snatched it up. When I first met Kyle, he seemed totally benign, just a laid-back artsy guy in his late 20s, working as a bartender and amateur photographer. We hit it off right away as he showed me around the sleek high-rise condo with sweeping city views. Kyle said he kept odd hours for his job, which explained why he needed help making rent. Other than being pretty messy, he appeared harmless overall. The first couple weeks living together were fairly uneventful. We didn't cross paths too often since I worked a 9-to-5 corporate schedule while Kyle worked late nights slinging drinks. When we did chat briefly over coffee or in passing, it was pleasant enough. Just casual small talk about local restaurants, TV shows, sports, normal male roommate stuff. But after about a month of cohabiting, I started noticing some strange patterns in Kyle's behavior. At all odd times of the day and night, these shifty-looking characters would show up at our door, and Kyle would quickly usher them into his bedroom, shutting the door firmly behind them. They would stay just a few minutes in hushed tones, then leave right away. When I casually brought it up to Kyle, he got oddly defensive and dismissive, saying it was just people buying his photography prints or some vintage furniture he was reselling. Though still a bit skeptical, I knew Kyle did have an old film camera and some quirky antique decor, so I chose to take him at his word. But the increasingly frequent visitors and Kyle's growing stacks of cash around the condo kept nagging at my mind. Things finally took a truly horrifying turn one early morning as I was jolted awake by the echoing banj of multiple police officers aggressively pounding on our front door at 5 a.m. Before I could even scramble out of bed, they broke the door clean off its hinges and began swarming inside with guns aimed directly at me, shouting at the top of their lungs for me to get down. Still half asleep, I dropped to the floor, paralyzed in terror as the aggressive officers cuffed my hands brutally tight behind my back, then moved to do the same to a shocked-looking Kyle emerging from his room. With us subdued, the police proceeded to ransack the entire condo, tearing open drawers and ripping up sofa cushions. The lead officer bellowed they had a warrant to search for narcotics related to a major drug bust. Still cuffed and pinned to the floor, I watched in horror as the officers uncovered massive stashes of bricks of cocaine, heroin, meth, MDMA, and LSD expertly hidden inside the walls and under floorboards in Kyle's bedroom and closet space. They'd also found huge wads of cash, distribution ledgers, and customer lists written in code. Meanwhile, I sat there bawling, desperately insisting that I knew absolutely nothing about any kind of drug activity going on. But the stone-faced police simply said that with large-scale narcotics distribution clearly being conducted out of our shared residence, we were both going to jail. Terrified, I pleaded over and over that I was just an innocent roommate completely oblivious to Kyle's nefarious activities. But the cops refused to listen, coldly loading me into the back of a squad car in handcuffs along with Kyle and charging us both as partners in coordinated drug trafficking. The weeks I spent locked in a jail cell awaiting my pretrial hearing were some of the most agonizing and traumatic of my entire life. My parents had to drain most of their retirement savings just to afford bail and my defense lawyer fees. The opaque justice system felt totally indifferent to my suffering and pleas of total innocence. Throughout the lengthy trial, I was a nervous wreck, endlessly petrified by thoughts of being wrongly convicted and imprisoned for years just for unknowingly living with a criminal mastermind. Mercifully, after months of hell, the judge finally agreed to dismiss all charges against me due to zero evidence actually tying me to Kyle's expansive drug empire. But the damage was already done. I was evicted from the apartment, my reputation was left in tatters, my trust in others shattered. I'm now prone to sudden panic attacks triggered by loud bangs resembling the police raid, or the sight of flashy police lights. And I struggle to take anyone at face value anymore, now knowing even harmless-seeming people can secretly be orchestrating horrific illegal activities behind closed doors.
Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.